Hello everyone and welcome to episode 71 of the Stephen King podcast. And as usual, Lou is by my side, ready to go and tell us everything we want to know about Stephen King.
Well, not everything, and I'm not physically by your side, but I am virtually there. So
yeah,
strap yourself in. This is going to be another excellent episode.
Yeah. In this episode, we will have loads and loads and loads of news. A lot of things are happening. So we'll bring it all to you. And we will also take a closer look at Silver Bullet, which was requested by one of you listeners. And this one also happens about the same time when we found out that Bernie Wrightson has passed away at the young age of 68, which is very unfortunate. And of course, he illustrated the Cycle of the Werewolf book. He was the co-creator of Swamp Thing. He did about 50 illustrations of Frankenstein. So he was a big artist, and unfortunately he left us too soon. So this episode is for Bernie.
This is for you, Bernie.
Yep.
Welcome, welcome. Do not fear the door that lies before you. We will protect you. We are your guides, Hans and Lou, and we will give you the latest in Stephen King news. But before we do so, you must prove yourself worthy. You must open the door and join us in the DeathRoom.
And the news today is, oh boy, it's great news. I don't think we have had this much great news at the same episode before. So hold on to your hats. Here we go.
We were all kind of hoping that Sony would drop a Dark Tower trailer, especially since there was a cover version done of one of the songs that was included in the Dark Tower trailer. And it's up on Spotify, and you can look for it on Hans' site. Look for the February 14th Valentine's Day posting that a group covered the song Behind Blue Eyes, which, if anybody has seen the bootleg trailer, knows that that song by The Who is included in there. And I actually think that this version of the song is pretty cool. It has that haunting quality about it. And the group was called L'Orchestre Cinematique, but I'm not sure if they're officially connected with the movie because if you've checked them out at all, they've done a lot of covers from other movies and that. So I think people were jumping to conclusions a little bit when this song came out by this group. I think they just, by chance, maybe they just scheduled for it to come out during this time period, but I don't really think that they're officially connected with the movie. I think that they just do cover songs of movie songs. So interesting. What do you think of it, Hans?
Yeah, I remember this song from the leaked trailer, and I liked it then and I like it a lot now. I think it's perfect for the trailer, and I'm thinking that since the movie originally was supposed to be released in the end of February, maybe this song was supposed to be released in time with the movie, and then the movie was delayed, but the song never was. So that might be the reason that we're getting it now. But I think it's good. I like it a lot, and I think it will fit the movie great. It's interesting, though, to see all the speculation about it, and that Roland will have blue eyes in the movie, and that he will use contact lenses and everything like that, based on the title of the song.
Yeah,
I don't think that will happen.
No,
I think it's just as likely as if they would have done the crocodile walk, that Roland would have walked like a crocodile. So I think that this is just a coincidence.
Yeah,
I think they just picked this song because it's a good song and it captured the mood of the trailer. We don't even know if it's going to be in the movie.
No,
might just be the trailer.
Yeah, and when I listen to the song and I compare it to the clip or the snippet that's in the trailer, it's definitely not the same person singing in the trailer that's singing on this Spotify thing. So I don't think that they're officially connected with the trailer. I'm not sure, or the movie in any way. I'm not sure though. But I really just think that they're doing a cover version of somebody else's cover version of that song. But I have to say, I do like the tone of their version. It's got that eerie, haunted quality about it. I don't really think that I've just put up on your site that just for fun that who do you think they were referring to there? I really think it's for Jake. I'm pretty sure Tom Taylor has blue eyes, but I don't believe they would just CGI for a whole movie Idris Elba's eye color. I think they would. No. I think they would just make him wear contact lenses. Now maybe he can't wear contact lenses, and they are going to CGI them in. But from the pictures that we've seen from him on set, and that I don't remember seeing, or it's not clear to see if his eyes color is blue. I don't think they are. I think they're his natural eye color. So it's interesting how something like this, though, sparks a whole bunch of speculation. See how it spreads like in waves across the internet as some people, there's a song from the Dark Tower trailer, the leaked trailer that nobody really was supposed to have seen. But now all of a sudden, this means that we're going to get the trailer for the Dark Tower on February 19th.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll see anything until about 3 months out, which would be so the movie's coming out in July, so like June.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see anything till May. And I don't know if Sony has any big May releases coming out for the theater. So I know people are chomping at the bit, and the longer Sony stays quiet with this, the more grumblings are going to be about starting to see posts that I've got a bad feeling about this movie, blah, blah, blah. I'm just hoping that they're going to surprise everybody with the actual trailer. But we'll have to see. I mean, I guess the good thing is people are talking about it. So anytime a post goes up, people are responding to it, and that's a good thing. So for the hardcores and the movie fans and the geeks, they are aware that this movie is on the horizon. So that is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we have to separate us, the geeks, and Sony promotional people, because I don't think that, as we speculated, that they are going to release the trailer today because it's the 19th. Yep. I'm not so sure that 19 will be so big in the movie. I mean, it's big in the books, but they might not even pick it up in the movies, and then it wouldn't make much sense to release the trailer on the 19th. And people speculated on the 17th of February, 17 plus 2 will be 19 and stuff like that. So I think we have to. I'm not sure that the promotion people at Sony are as, if I can call it, geeky as us, and seeing these connections that we see. So I think they will release the trailer when they think it's ready and when there's a good movie to attach it to. I don't think they will. It's not like Friday the 13th that they try to release the movie on Friday the 13th. So I'm not sure that the 19 will make so much sense as for the movie as it does for the books.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I've just looked while you were talking at Sony's movie release schedule. Their next big movie is March 24th, and that's a science fiction thriller called Life with Jake Gyllenhaal and Ryan Reynolds. And I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this yet, Hans, but it's about a group of scientists in a space station orbiting Earth, and they intercept a satellite that's returning from Mars. And when they bring it aboard, they find that there's like an organism on the satellite, like a single-celled organism, and then this thing starts to grow, and it turns into like an alien movie. So it's a sci-fi thriller that's coming out on March 24th. If I had to put my money on the next date that we're going to see this Dark Tower trailer, I would say that that's probably the movie. It seems like a good fit, considering that it's a R-rated movie and it's a high-profile film. So that would be a good time for them to start doing a teaser for the Dark Tower trailer. So we'll have to see, but I'm betting on it happening or being attached to their Sony's next big release, which is called Life.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yes.
And in the meantime, we can always order some toys.
More toys.
Yeah, a couple of new Dark Tower figures called Pops, where I think that from what I've seen of these, they have humongous heads. And that's the trademark for these kind of Pops.
Yep.
So you have, again, Roland and the Man in Black.
Yeah.
And if I had to choose, I think this new one looks better than the other ones that we talked about last time, where Roland actually looked like Bill Cosby. I think that this one looks better.
Right.
But still, I don't know. The Man in Black he's holding some kind of crystal.
Yep. It's one of the Wizard's glass, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to be included in the movie, or if you think just out playing bull with a
no,
oaks.
if you look back to the leaked trailer, Matthew McConaughey has a scene where he slams a crystal into like a ball into a stand. So I think that we're going to see some of the wizard's glass type artifacts in the movie. I have to say that I much prefer these to the other ones, though I do think the smaller, was it Vinimate or Vegemite or whatever the heck it was?
Yeah.
One of the Men in Black had a better sweep of hair. Made him look more evil. This one just looks cute. So, but I do like the fact that he's holding that crystal ball in his hand. That's kind of cool. And I think you can almost see that he's got that Crimson Eye necklace too, just sort of peeking out. So that's cool. And Roland, actually the amount of detail on that is pretty good. Like from the pictures that we've seen, we can see that it's got the metal buckles from his vest. And he mentioned in an interview that one of the things that he added to the wardrobe for the character was that he had a red scarf or a bandana. And I'm pretty sure that we can see that peeking out from the collar of his shirt. So, and I like the flapping jacket too, his duster. So, and it looks like him. At least it looks like him in this one. The other one was like you said. The other one looked like Bill Cosby. This one, I actually could see Idris Elba in that. And I like the way they've shaped the beard to give his mouth that kind of grim look. But it looks like him and the Men in Black get their eyebrows done at the same place. So. Yeah,
and it's interesting. They actually doesn't have any mouth.
Nope.
It's just if he hadn't had that beard, we wouldn't know where his mouth was.
Yeah, well, the Men in Black doesn't have one at all. So
nope.
I don't know. I think I like them. I don't mind these ones at all. I mean, I'm not a collector of this kind of stuff, but if somebody gave them to me, I definitely would. Yeah. The only thing it doesn't look like the guns come out of his hands, which is too bad. But those are badass looking guns. Those look like the old style 6-shooters that Clint Eastwood used in what was that movie? It was a Pale Rider, like the kind where you had to lower the like under the barrel. There's like a lever there that you have to pull down before you can pop out the cartridge that holds the round. Sorry, gun guys, don't get mad at me. I'm not an expert on guns, but you know what I mean. Like, because some of the other 6-shooters, they just like flick it to the side and then the chamber comes out. But I think with the older style guns, you had to put this lever down which was like a locking mechanism. So I'm really surprised or impressed with the amount of detail on the Roland pop figure. It's pretty impressive, actually.
Yep. And he's actually holding the guns too close to the head, so they have swollen up as the head, so they won't fit in this holster anymore.
Yeah, only the barrel has to fit in the holster, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but for you collectors out there, and I think the crystal ball is a nice touch. Wizard's glass that's a nice touch for the Man in Black. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yep. Okay, let's move on. And the next one is Mr. Mercedes, who they have started shooting now, and there's actually been quite a lot of photos from the set.
Yeah.
Posted online from different people involved with the shooting of the film. We haven't seen any from the actors, really. We've seen some photos of them just sitting around or stuff like that, but we haven't seen any action, really.
No.
Just photos from the set and people walking around, and we have some chairs with a logo on the back and stuff like that. So we don't know. We've seen the photos of the car from the Brain Buds, where Brady works.
Yeah.
Quite cool cars, I think.
Yeah.
And they've totally remodeled some store, so now it's Supreme Electronics.
Yep.
Where I guess that's where Brady works. And yeah, I think it looks promising. I have really high hope for this one. I think it will be good. I know I've thought that about the Dome before we saw it as well. So, but I have hopes for this one, and I'm going to keep them as long as I can.
Absolutely. That's the way I like to look at things. I know some people like to look at the other way, expecting the worst, but that's not my style. I'm always amazed at when you see behind the scene pictures at how chaotic everything looks behind the camera, and then when you see the finished product, it looks so clean, and it's two different worlds. It's amazing how much behind the scenes stuff has to exist in order to make the stuff in front of the camera look so seamless. And it must be cool though, but it looks like a lot of waiting around, so that's got to be tough too.
Yeah, really. And one interesting thing, and here's a little spoiler for you if you haven't actually read the book yet, so you're going to have to cover your eyes your ears for a moment. They were actually looking for extras to play what's supposed to be the scene where Mr. Mercedes run into all these people. And they mentioned where they seek for these people those familiar with the Mr. Mercedes novel will understand the importance of this filming sequence into the series. So it sounds like they are taking it seriously and really doing it by the book.
All right, next item up is something that was brought to our attention by a constant listener, Bryant Burnett, and in relation to Creepshow 2, there was a missing installment that had to be dropped from the movie due to budget restrictions, and that was called Pinfall. And basically, this is a segment that I'm not going to get into too much detail, but it's bowling-based and zombie-based, so you can take it from there. But what's really cool about it is that a comic book has been produced. For now, it's just a limited edition that was released with the limited Blu-ray edition of the Creepshow 2 Blu-ray, which I don't have, and I believe it's sold out now. So if you think that you can get a copy of it now, you're gonna have to also expect to pay the premium scalping prices that it's going for now on eBay and whatnot. But yeah. What's really cool about this comic book that was illustrated by creator Jason Mayo is that if you go over to Bryant's site, The Truth Inside the Lie, and hopefully you all know where that's a reference from, he has a review of the comic book and some really high quality scans of pages from the comic book, as well as a interview with the creator. So hopefully this exposure will lead to the possibility of maybe getting this comic book released in a wider format or platform that the rest of us can also take a look at this comic book, because it looks pretty cool. And if you see the cover over at Hans' site, it's a pretty cool homage to the ending of the Carrie movie in a kind of a certain way, if you know what I mean. So, but with a bowling theme. So it's pretty cool. So check that out.
Yeah, definitely. And I really hope that this one will be released. And actually, both this one and The Cat from Hell was cut from the movie because it would be too long. They were both supposed to be in the Creepshow 2 movie. But this one was especially written for that one, so it hasn't actually been published yet in any other way. So I think it's great that it's out. As you say, I hope it will be out so that everyone can check it out and buy it. It deserves it.
Yep.
Okay. And moving on, we have some It news. And I don't know if this was really a surprise, because I think we have mentioned it and speculated before that if the first It movie didn't do well at the box office, there probably wouldn't be a second one. And I mean, this is true for most movies. It's very unusual that they do the first and the second movie at the same time. If the first movie is a huge success, they could do the second and the third movie as in one sitting. But I don't think they ever made the first and the second movie both at the same time, just chancing that the first one will be a success. So I don't think it's a surprise really that if the first one isn't a success, there won't be a sequel. But now they have mentioned it, so we know that our speculations were correct.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also mentioned that it will be a R rating.
Yes.
And that's good,
yes.
Because then we have all the gory stuff
yes.
left in. And I think it would have to be that. They couldn't possibly have done a It movie with not making it R-rated. I think that would have been a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, as you mentioned, we were pretty sure that it was going to be an R-rated movie based on what we were seeing. But it's always nice to get that confirmation, because you can push the envelope pretty good with a PG-13 rating nowadays. Because we've seen movies like, if you look at the Lord of the Rings movies, really, some of those scenes are pretty R-rated stuff, I guess. But
yeah,
because it's violence and it's fantastical violence, I think that's why they were able to actually get those movies under R rating. But with this, you're dealing with kids, and that automatically is going to raise flags for people. So you really have to, I think it just lends itself to being rated R, because it's one thing for kids to see orcs getting decapitated, but it's another thing for kids to watch other kids being hurt or tortured and things like that. So I think our rating is really important. I think it's it's a combination. It definitely, if they're going to show some gore, that could be part of it. But I think it's because it's dealing with children, and children being harmed or in danger, I think automatically lends itself to an R rating pretty quickly. So that's great to hear. The producer, one of the behind the scenes guys, Dan Lin, was interviewed, and you can see the post over at Hans' site with a link to the video. He's giving a very much of a thumbs up to the cast, which is great to hear. And he says they're going to get a Stand By Me vibe, which obviously they're promoting the movie, so they're going to call on references to things that fans are going to get behind. But I mean, it's still good to hear them referencing these things, and that at least he's aware of this material. So
Yeah.
as to if the movie doesn't do well and they don't get the chance to do the second half, I just hope that this movie is self-contained enough that if we don't get the sequel, it feels like a satisfying and complete story. And I think that they can do that. I know some people have concerns about the fact that they split the movies up this way because the book is flashbacks between the viewpoints of the adults and the kid versions of the characters. But I don't think that's just an adaptational issue. I don't really think it'll be a big problem. So let's just hope that whatever happens, this movie itself tells a complete story and just leaves enough breadcrumbs or Easter eggs for us to look forward to seeing a sequel if it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think it will be as good so that we'll get a sequel. I'm not worried.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that from what we have seen so far, I think it will be good enough to render a sequel.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way too, especially when you look at the budgets. They've been very prudent with keeping the costs down. Combined budgets of $40 million, so we have to assume they've split it in two, and $20 million for this one and $20 million for the next one. And the track record of horror movies lately at theaters is really good. Great return on investment. So things are looking very positive for this. So we'll just can't wait until September. All right.
Okay, next up is more movie news, and it's actually Stephen King himself who's been watching an early rough cut of Gerald's Game. He enjoyed it. He said, horrifying, hypnotic, terrific. It's going to freak you out. So that sounds good. And immediately, of course, some people pointed out that he said the same thing about Under the Dome. But I, again, tend to choose the positive way and thinking that it's better that he says that it's good and is right than he say that it sucks and being right. So I think that this is still a good indication of what we're in for.
Like, she's promoting something, so you got everything. You have to take it with a grain of salt. I don't think he just deliberately misleads anybody. And to be fair,
No.
When he was talking about Under the Dome, he was talking about the first few episodes of the first season, which was probably the strongest part of that. Like, you can't blame him for what happened in the second and third season or even in the back half of the first. But with this, he's seeing this is a thing that has a definitive start and end. So I think he can place a little more value on his appraisal of this segment. And I think it's going to surprise a lot of people because, like, you know, we've all been struggling with how would you film this? And if they've come up with a unique solution and approach to it, then that should be pretty cool. I mean, I'm getting, I think this is like Misery in a way. So or Rear Window with the Alfred Hitchcock movie. So it'll be interesting to see how they've handled this. And I'm looking forward to it as well. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and just to be correct about Under the Dome, King actually went out and said that it wasn't very good at the end. So I think he says what he thinks, but I think he lives by the rule that if you don't have any positive to say, don't say anything. So I think that if he saw let's say that he had seen Gerald's Game and didn't like it, I think he would just not tweet about it. And when he likes it, he says that it's good. I don't think he would go out and say that an upcoming movie based on his book is bad, because that would be kind of devastating for the for the poor filmmaker who's done it.
Yeah.
So I think that then he would just keep quiet about it and just not say anything.
Absolutely. And that's a great point that you made, because if you talk to people, professional people who have to give their opinions on other people's work in the same industry that they do, be it movies, music, or television, the professionals will just point out the things that they like. And if they don't like something, they usually just don't say anything, period. So if there's a King project and you don't hear anything about it from King, then you can take that as a sign that, I mean, not every time, maybe he's busy or just hasn't seen it. But generally, if somebody doesn't give their stamp of approval on something, that's usually a pretty telling sign. It's like when movie company studios going to release a movie without showing it to the critics ahead of time, or saying, no, you can't release your review until the movie's in the theaters. That's usually sends up a red flag, and silence often speaks volumes in these types of things. So that's something else to be aware of. Yeah. All right. When we did our 2017 look ahead, where we also talked about The Mist, we were always looking forward to what surprises will 2017 hold to us. And we got a very early one this year. It didn't take very long, February. A Valentine's Day present, I guess, in a way, from Stephen King and J.J. Abrams. They are teaming up. It's not for The Dark Tower. It's not for a theatrical release, but it's a Hulu limited series simply called Castle Rock. And if you go to Han's site, you can see the tweet or the link for the YouTube video. And There's nothing really there. It's a typical JJ, very secretive type of project. The card says, "What is the hoax in the forest?" And then it gives you the link. And then if you watch the video, it's just a montage of references to Stephen King characters and places with snatches of dialogues from various stories. And all the while, it's like a system of underground routes spreading out through this. I don't know what it's supposed to be. Is it supposed to be like the universe of Stephen King? Something?
Yeah, I think it maps out the main part of the map, I think, and then there's a light coming up. Probably is where Castle Rock is on the map.
Right.
It's zooming in that.
Yes. So at this stage, all we really know is that it's a Hulu miniseries. We don't know exactly when it's coming out. We know that they have Sam Shaw is the creator of the series. And Manhattan creator, I guess, was that a series? I'm not familiar with that. But Sam Shaw and Dusty Tomlinson are the creators of it. So I assume that JJ will once again be wearing his executive producer hat. It sounds like it's going to be an anthology series. Is that your understanding, Hans?
Yeah, as you say, we don't know anything about it, and I have no clue what that note, the hoax in the forest, what that's supposed to mean. But I'm super excited about this one, and as I mentioned to you earlier, I actually found out about this 2:30 in the morning when I was up late and I was just going to bed and checking last time on the phone before I go to bed and seeing this, and of course had to get up and didn't get back to sleep for a while. But I think this will be really cool, and as you say, the trailer is both, I think it's both places, people, and works that's connected to Castle Rock in some way. I actually tried to list all of them while looking at the trailer and pausing it and trying to list them, but you can't even see all of them, so I gave up pretty quickly. But hopefully someone else with more time on their hands can do that, and so we can check out everything listed there, because I think that's interesting. I also tried to listen to the dialogue you hear, and if that is actually from the movies, I think it's Misery is mentioned, I think, and
The Shining.
I think and I think that there's some dialogue there, and I was trying to listen if that was actually the one from the movies, but I didn't think it didn't sound exactly like the one in the movie. So I'm thinking that might be a different recording, that someone else is saying the lines. And
I think so too. I don't think they're from the movies. No.
Yeah. So my guess, and this is just a guess because we don't really know anything about this, is that this will be a combination of, I think that they will start off with adapting some of King's shorter works that takes place in Castle Rock. I think that they will expand it, and those two fellows that you mentioned earlier, Sam and Dusty, will probably write their own material standalone. I don't think every episode will be based on a Stephen King story. So I think that it will be a combination of King stories, newly written stories that will involve characters and places and stuff like that we will recognize anyway, but it won't be a direct adaptation of King stuff. And I don't think that King will be... I think maybe he will do like 1 or 2 episodes. I don't think he will write a lot of episodes because I don't think he has the time for that. So I think this will be maybe more of an inspiration from King's universe and King's Castle Rock and the universe he has built around Castle Rock. So I'm not expecting that it will be a total adaptation of King stuff. But that's just a guess from my side. One thing that I am very happy about, though, is that it landed at Hulu's, because I think they did a great job with 11/22/63, both promotional-wise, the look and the feel of the show. I think regardless of if you like the show or not, it was very, very nice done, very, very nice presented to us. Everything from the introduction, where all those threads were coming and going and stuff like that. So I think that the fact that it landed at Hulu is telling us that this will be a solid and good production. At least I think that. And then we'll have to see a little bit more about what every episode will be and who's behind it and stuff like that.
Yeah, at this stage we know so little, and we don't know if this is planned as just a one-shot thing, or maybe is it going to turn out to be a multiple season kind of thing. I do hope that they do some straight up adaptations, but I also would like to see them mix it up and maybe do some extensions of story ideas or that King has created, and whether or not King's going to actually write a script or something for it, I'm not really. I don't know how I feel about that. I'd rather have him just write books at this stage. I don't really want him to be diverting time into TV projects and that, unless he wants to revive Golden Years. That's a different story, because I still want an ending to that story. And maybe we'll get that in this. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the cool thing about it. The possibilities are endless. I mean, I would love to see them do a new adaptation of The Raft, because I just think that's a really nice, tight, creepy story that with modern effects could be so cool. I'd love to see something like that. And yeah, I mean, if JJ's just steering the ship, which is pretty cool, his strengths are the behind the scenes stuff, I think, getting the right people, getting the right cast, the production stuff, all that he's really good at that stuff, and everything that he's done from that perspective has been top notch, be it from the Star Trek movies and Star Wars to Fringe, Alias. If I was to start up a TV series, J.J. Abrams would be at the top of my list for saying, here, I want you to assemble a team for me that can to help me make this show happen. He would be at the top of my list for doing that. So that is exciting. And we, like you said, we saw that with 11/22/63. Overall, I thought that it was really well produced and came across great. I wasn't totally happy with how the main character was portrayed, but I don't really think his issue. I think that was the lead writer's issue and James Franco's portrayal of that character. But it was a gorgeous series, and the production values are great. So from that perspective, I think there's a lot to be excited about with this announcement. And what a great surprise. I mean,
yeah, really.
You know, we're already getting The Mist and Gerald's Game and
Mr. Mercedes, but that one probably won't be for until next year.
Maybe, yeah. So
as it looks, yeah.
So exciting, and we're only in February.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that, as we mentioned, the possibilities are endless, because
that's the
you
exciting
can have
thing.
this town and stuff can happen, and it could be based on stuff that King has written with a new twist and everything like that.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is that they will do where Cujo meets Shawshank Redemption, where you mix the characters and they meet and they fight or something like that. You have to be careful with that, I think.
Yeah.
So it doesn't turn out ridiculous, because you don't have to mix them all in the same story. You can have a story about one of them and a different story about one of them, and they could like mention each other or be aware of each other. But I don't think that they necessarily need to meet or stuff like that. It could be cheesy. So it has to be done right that way, I think. That's my only really concern about this.
For sure, yeah.
Actually, yeah.
You don't want them crossing the streams too much. I think they would be better off to just take individual stories and just adapt in. And if they want to do Easter eggs, like with signs that reference other properties, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
In some way, if they could possibly tie it into the Dark Tower mythos, that would be cool as well. But so many possibilities. I'm really looking forward to see what they're going to come up with.
Yep. And we don't even know when this is going to happen. It might happen soon. It might happen in a year or in 2 years, or we don't know anything. But I would be surprised if we see it this year, because so far I would guess that they haven't started casting or anything like that. So I think it might be too early to expect it this year, but who knows?
Yep.
They might work fast.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, and this is cool. Both Stephen King and Owen King will be at the Book Expo on June 1st, promoting their upcoming collaboration, Sleeping Beauties. And I'm not sure really what they will do. There will be some kind of breakfast, but I guess you don't sit there and eat egg and bacon with them. So I guess they will be talking or maybe reading from their book or something. It's called Prologue to Stephen King and Owen King. Prologue by Stephen King and Owen King.
Right.
So I guess that's really interesting. And I'm not sure how to get tickets, or even if you're not a member or something like that. I haven't looked into that really, because I won't be going since it's way too far away from me. Mm-hmm. So, but if anyone is, let us know.
Yes, and like yourself, this is not something that I can afford, but it'll be interesting to see what they're going to talk about. Like the title of their appearance, Prologue by Stephen King and Owen King.
Yeah.
Is this dealing with how to write prologues for books? Or is it about the prologue to Sleeping Beauties? I'm not sure, because if you look at the other participants, they have different titles under their pictures. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to come up with. And I still can't believe that nobody's given us a report of the reading that King did at that other book event where he read 2 sections from Sleeping Beauties.
Yeah.
Still haven't heard anything. Come on, people. Where's the YouTube?
So frustrating.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm hoping that we both know that King isn't very fond of going on book tours and stuff like that. But I'm hoping that because his Owen is with him and they might want to boost him a little bit, that they will be doing book tours for this one. And maybe that they will actually come to Europe, maybe to London or something like that. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it. It's just me hoping. But if there's ever some time that King is going to come, I think that might be it. That is doing this with his son and giving him a little boost as well as an author. So hopefully, and if he does, I will be there. Wherever in Europe he is, I will be there.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll go to London, but maybe he'll go to Sweden. Though didn't you guys have a terrorist attack yesterday or something, according to Donald Trump? I don't know. But
well, according to Donald Trump, we had. No one here in Sweden seems to know what it was.
Yeah. So he might want to go somewhere sane, like or Canada or some other country where we don't have anything like this.
Yeah,
at least not yet. But I guess we'll find out eventually. So since I talked about the first big surprise of 2017, Hans, why don't you take this one?
We have a new Stephen King book coming. We're going to get 2 books this year as well.
Woohoo!
Yeah, this one came from nowhere. Just a couple of weeks ago, we started to see that Richard Chismer, the founder and owner of Cemetery Dance, posted that he was going to post some big news on his Twitter and Facebook. And as usual, when stuff like this happens, you are always a bit cautious, at least I am, to not get disappointed, and you don't want to think that it is what you're hoping it is, because often there could be something that's not so great as you were hoping for. So I was cautious, but I didn't need to, because when it was announced, it was a new Stephen King book. And the thing that got Richard going was that he actually co-wrote this with Stephen King. How amazing is that?
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's not all. It's actually a new Castle Rock story. So we get a new book, we get a collaboration, and we get a new Castle Rock story. So what we get is what happened was that King and Richard has become friends, and King mentioned that he had a story that he couldn't finish, and Richard mentioned that he could take a look at it if King wanted. So he sent it over, and they worked on it together, and turned out to be Gwendy's Button Box. And not only that, it will be released as a standalone book. If you remember a few years back, Cemetery Dance did something quite similar with Blockade Billy. They announced that it would be a book released, and also that one was also released pretty quick after it was announced. This one, however, is shorter than Blockade Billy. It's 167 pages long, and it will be released in the end of May 30. So it's just a little over 2 months, and we'll have this year's first Stephen King book.
Yeah, what a wonderful surprise. And read Richard Chismar's collection of short stories, which was a very large book of 600 pages along December. And he's a really good writer. I mean, I really enjoyed all his stories. They have that small town vibe to them that you get from Stephen King's stories. And he's a solid and entertaining writer. So I think that they will make a very good combination here. And there's a lot of interesting things about this. The title of the book, which is cool, Gwendy's Button Box. What can that be about? A little bit of the blurb. The little town of Castle Rock, Maine has witnessed some very strange events and unusual visitors over the years, but there is one story that has never been told until now. There are 3 ways up to Castle View from the town of Castle Rock: Route 117, Pleasant Road, and the Suicide Stairs. I love that name, Suicide Stairs.
Yeah.
Every day in the summer of 1974, 12-year-old Gwendy Peterson has taken the stairs, which are held up by strong, if time-rusted iron bolts and zigzag up the cliffside. So there's more to it there, but if you go to Hans' site and look at the February 28th article, you can read it. It was a little confusing at first when this was announced, because we thought maybe this was in some way tied into the Castle Rock Hulu series that was announced probably within a day or two before, I think. So really looking forward to it. The book is going to be available not just through Cemetery Dance, but through Amazon, at least in Canada. With Amazon here is already taking pre-orders for the book, which is great because, as you know, we've constantly complained about shipping costs. So so that's great. I don't know if over where you are, Hans, this is Amazon Sweden or UK. Do they have it up at all? Or?
Well, we don't have our own Amazon yet, but it's available for pre-order in some online stores here as well. So that will save us some of the shipping costs as well. Yeah. And there will also be a limited edition, this one. Unfortunately, it's already sold out, so you don't have to get your hopes up too high.
Surprise.
And what they did was that it will be released in a lettered version of 52 copies and a numbered edition of, I think it was a bit over 300 copies, maybe 350 copies or something like that. And it's released by the publishing house Lonely Roads Books, which is a daughter company almost to Cemetery Dance. And what they did was they offered it to everyone who ordered their previous book, and they offer them to get the same number. And for those copies that were over, when those who wanted it to buy it had buy it, was auctioned out. Were sold by lottery. And I read that there were 2,300 requests to have the book, and they had 51 copies left. So needless to say, a lot of people who wanted the book didn't get it in limited forms, but you will still have the finished book when it's released, so you can buy that one. And I think if it's not too late. Cemetery Dance had some that was signed by Richard, but I don't know if they still sell those signed by him. The limited would be signed by both King and Richard. But it's good that the book is being sold by regular published booksellers as well, so it could reach a lot of people.
Absolutely. And two more things I want to add to this. If you want to hear a really good interview with Richard, check out the Brian Keane Horror Podcast, episode 105. He talks to Richard for about 20 minutes or so about the genesis of the book. And it's always cool to actually hear the person involved talk about their project as well. So check out that Brian Keane podcast, which is the horror podcast, which is a great podcast. And it's really fun to hear Brian and Richard talking about this book. And the other 6 degrees of separation kind of thing for me is the cover to the book, Gwendy's Button Box. I happen to have a friend who's a writer, and he has a book called Planet Song. And his book cover was done by the same artist as the one that's done the one for Gwendy's Button Box. So that's kind of cool. So a friend of mine, Greg McKettrick, who goes by the writer name TK Boomer, has a book out called Planet Song. It's the first of a trilogy, and it's a small world sometimes. So that's pretty cool. And Greg, if you're listening, there you go. You got your free plug.
Yep. And I can also mention that I have actually read the book, and you are in for a treat.
Oh, I hate it when you do that. No, I know. That's awesome, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to it then.
It's really good. Yeah.
Awesome. And more big news. Man, we thought 2017 was going to be big because of the movies, but all this book news as well is really making 2017 another special year. And we've talked about the story several times already, but more details are trickling out, and it's in reference to Sleeping Beauties, the Stephen King and Owen King collaboration. And we're starting to get more details about when the book is going to be published and what it's about. So I'll talk about the release date, and Hans, you can talk about what this book is about. So the book is through Hodder and Stoughton, will be published on September 26th this year. So that will be something to look forward to. And that's a change. I thought the original date we got was November. Am I mistaken on that? Or
I think they mentioned October 1st.
October, something like that. So that's great. I mean, that still leaves the door open for a Stephen King book in November. Let's go for a hat trick for hockey fans. Yeah. So, and at the same time, there will be a simultaneous audio edition release as well by Hodder Audio. But the really cool thing is we also found out more about the book, what the book is really about.
Yes, and I think that this is probably the book that has been most hard to get the grasp on, I think, of King's books, because the plot is often quite easy to understand. But here we've heard earlier that it will be like that all the women disappear, and we will get some of the tales from the women's parts and some from the man's view and woman's parts. Sorry, woman's mind. Okay. Well.
That's staying in.
Yeah,
That's definitely staying in.
Yeah, the men of our worlds are abandoned, left to their increasingly primal device. One woman, however, the mysterious Evie, is immune to the blessings or curse of the sleeping disease. Is evil a medical anomaly to be studied, or is she a demon who must be slain? So, and every time I read something new about this book, it seems to take another twist. So,
yeah.
Even though we've read a couple of synopses for the book, I can't really grasp what it's about yet. So it's I guess we have to wait and see. But it's definitely interesting. And on the Hodder UK edition, on their side, they even posted it's not a cover because it's what they call a placeholder.
Right.
But normally a placeholder would be just say black or white or one color with a name on it. But this one actually has some moth on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they would do that without reason. And I also remember reading online that Owen had said that he had to learn a lot about moth when he was doing this book. So
nice catch.
I'm guessing that will be included in some way. And we also know that the UK edition will be 704 pages and the US edition will be 720 pages. And just to be clear, this doesn't mean that the UK readers will miss 16 pages. It's just the it is just the difference
in typeset.
Yeah, in typeset and stuff like that. Who always change what it is. So, but it will be a long book. I mean, 700 pages, over 700 pages. Yes. It's a long book. So. Yes. This will be great reading.
Yes, that's a great catch you got on the cover there, because in the synopsis that we've got, we learned that all the women are wrapped in cocoons. So, and if you try to open one, some sort of crazy beast comes out or whatever. So this could be some sort of metamorphosis for them, which is interesting. And I get if for anybody that's read Justin Cronin's The Passage trilogy, I get that same kind of vibe. That one was about a plague that turned people into vampires, but there's a lot of similarities, it seems like, with this one as well. So at least in theme, not in content, but thematically, it sounds familiar to me in that respect. So this is exciting news, and I'm actually surprised that we haven't heard anything about some major movie studio acquiring the film rights to it yet. But I'm sure I'm sure that will follow shortly.
Yeah, I think that, along with speculation on signings and appearances and stuff like that, will kick in here just in a couple of months, I guess.
Yes, haven't even really thought about that, but you would imagine that Stephen would do some appearances with his son for sure.
Yeah, I think that, and I'm just guessing now. I don't know anything about it, but I guess that even though King might not be so happy to go around and do signings and stuff like that, I think that to support Owen and to lift him as author, I think this is one reason that could make it a bigger chance that it would happen with this book than if it was a book that King had written himself. Okay, let's move on. And the next is also actually a book news, and this is interesting because this also came from nowhere, and it has been in the making for quite some time, but I did just find out about it a couple of weeks ago. And it's a book called Nope, Nothing Wrong Here, The Making of Cujo. And this is actually a book that's a little bit over 400 pages of how they made the movie Cujo. And I think this will be an interesting book, because I think that the author, who I actually talked a little bit about too, has done a great job. He's talked to a lot of people involved in the making of the movie. And I think this could be a really interesting behind the scenes look. There will be lots and lots of photos never before seen as well. And there was actually one photo released that I posted on my Facebook page that made me laugh so hard I could almost fell out of my chair. It's when they recorded Cujo. There were, in some scenes, there were actually a man in a dog suit,
Yep.
And you have a picture of that man in that dog suit with, what's her name, the woman playing the mother?
Dee Wallace.
Yeah, exactly. And another guy. They are having their arms around each other's shoulders and dancing. I don't know if you saw that picture, but it's a really fun picture, and I imagine that we'll get lots of picture like that, behind the scenes photos and stuff in this book. So I think it's going to be an interesting book if you like to read behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, it's cool that they're making a book about a behind the scenes book about this movie, especially since it's probably not up in the what we would consider upper tier movie. So I'm not sure how many people are actually interested in finding out about this, but of course the real fans will. I'm a little curious about the title because obviously it's a slogan from the novel, but it makes you think that it was a troubled production. I don't know if that's the intent or if that's accidental, but from everything I've read, that movie's production went along pretty smoothly. So
yeah,
it's an interesting choice. I question it a little bit, but it's understandable because it is the catchphrase of the movie. So
yeah, and if you head over to my site and go to the March 9 news, there's a link where you can place a pre-order for it now. It's going to be released in both hardback and trade paperback. I think this is a version like we've talked about DVDs that were released about Pet Sematary and Creepshow and stuff like that. I think this is the book version of that, and I think it will be quite interesting to read this one.
Yeah, it's always interesting the behind the scenes stuff for movies for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so more movie news, but this is stuff that we have yet to see. And there's been a ton of stuff dropped for the It movie. Some of it just happened yesterday, but we'll start off what happened at the beginning of the month. And if you go to March 2nd on Han's site, you can see one of the first stills from the It movie showing Patrick Hochstetter, Henry Bowers, Belch, Higgins, Ben Hanscom, and the Paul Bunyan statue. So it's really cool that they've framed that scene to have the Paul Bunyan statue in the background while Patrick Hochstetter is bullying Ben Hanscom. So it looks very from the time period, the 80s. So it looks like they really captured the casting well with all these characters.
Yeah. And we also heard from King that he likes the movie. He's seen it, and he's posted both on Twitter and Facebook that Andy Muschietti's remake of It, actually it's part 1, The Losers Clubs, succeeds beyond my expectations. Relax, wait, and enjoy.
Yeah.
And also on his message board, the moderator there posted, Steve asked me to pass along that he saw a screening of It today. I wanted to let everyone know that they should stop worrying about it, as the producers have done a wonderful job with the production. So, and it's interesting because there's always people who compare that to, he did like Under the Dome as well. And sure, he said that he liked Under the Dome, and he said he liked this one. And I guess we have to make up our own minds once we see the movie. But personally, I am happy that he says he likes it. It would be worse if he said he hated it. Then I would be really worried. So
he just wouldn't say anything.
Yeah, probably. So I think that he's seen it and he liked it. So that's good enough for me for now. Then if I agree or if I don't, that will be a question for when I see it.
Yeah, we all have different tastes, and rightly or wrongly, people are pointing out that he's given the thumbs up to projects that generally haven't been received nearly as well. The only one I'll quibble with is Under the Dome, in that is a TV series, and whatever opinion he had was obviously based off a handful of episodes and not the entire 3-year run. So that's not fair comparison. But he has put thumbs up to some movies that I don't agree with that either. But it's far better that he's behind something than just not saying anything at all. But we'll have to see how it goes. And based on our next story, it seems that a lot of people are in agreement with Mr. King's opinion of the It movie, because at the South by Southwest Film Conference on Saturday, that would be March 10th, we're recording on the 12th, or maybe it was the 11th, sorry.
Yeah, the 11th, yeah.
Yeah, they showed a teaser from the film as well as a scene from it. So if you go to Hans' site, you can get links to both of them. Daily Dread or Daily Dead reported more about but more time on the scene that we saw, or that they showed, whereas Dread Central focused more on the teaser. And it sounds like it's going to be a pretty scary movie. So, and it's bloody disgusting. My apologies. And it opens up with famous scene of the boat, the paper boat, and Georgie and Bill Denborough. And there's some great descriptions there about some sequences, which are without really showing Pennywise, but are highlighting his powers, his abilities to shapeshift and work himself into the psyches and minds of his prey. And we also get a mention of the famous sink shot with Beverly and the blood. And it ends up with the last scene shows Bill walking into his flooded basement, and Georgie's ghost is screaming to him, "We all float down here." So, and then it opens with a jump scare shot with Pennywise rushing out of the water. So that sounds like it was really well received. The scene they showed was, I think it's more of the ones about the members of the Losers Club realizing that they have all been being haunted by the same creature, which somebody finally says the clown. So the reception from what we're seeing at this festival sounds very positive, and it looks like the director of the film, Machete, has taken this opportunity to push the R rating as much as he can and make a really scary movie. So a lot of articles have come out. I recommend that you read them. There's also a bit about Machete's philosophy on what he wanted to accomplish with the movie, and I think it all sounds pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, I agree, and so does everyone who's seen it. I haven't heard anyone say anything negative about the teaser. The only thing that I've heard is that they wish they could have heard Pennywise's voice.
Yeah,
to give an indication on how he sounds, but that's the only thing. And hopefully we will see this teaser pretty soon. They did, however, mention, I read, that the FX wasn't totally 100% done for the trailer or teaser. But then on the other hand, the one seeing it couldn't really see anything missing, not like with the leaked Dark Tower trailer. Yeah. So probably they're going to have to fix that up first, and then it will probably be hopefully released pretty soon.
Yeah, my understanding is the trailer had everything in the trailer was finished, but the movie itself they're still working on effect shots. So
okay. Yeah.
So this all sounds very exciting, and that's the plus side. The negative side is this puts more pressure on the Dark Tower film team to give us something to because the rumblings with each passing week are growing louder and louder. I'm seeing a lot more like what the hell's going on with the Dark Tower movie kind of articles and posts. Yeah. So I hope that they get something out by the end of this month. And I really think that in a way, the teaser that they did for Castle Rock was the teaser that I would like to see for the first, the first bit of media exposure for the Dark Tower, where they just give you a landscape of all these books and characters, and then at the center of it is the Dark Tower, and then it would be a quick cut to maybe Idris Elba as a gunslinger or something like that. I think that would be a really good teaser.
Yeah, and such a teaser they should have been able to get out long ago, because that really doesn't demand so much for finished filming. Right. So they could have had that out a long time ago. But it's interesting if the It trailer comes before the Dark Tower, now that the Dark Tower movie is released a month and a half before the It movie. So there's definitely something strange with not having a Dark Tower trailer, I think.
I don't know if it's definitely strange. I think that's what people like to think. Some teams just work faster than others, and this one director might have he wants to get that first trailer really right, and he might just be taking more time with it. And I think the Dark Tower's probably got more effects in it, so that's another reason why. And they don't want to spend their money as quickly, so they're playing it out. I mean, I'm still very energized by the fact that Sony was willing to allow for some pickup shots, and that if they didn't like the movie, why would they spend that money on those shots? So I think that's a very positive sign. And I think the fact that they positioned it after Spider-Man, I don't think that can be underplayed, because so many people are going to go see that movie, and you know that there's going to be a Dark Tower trailer in front of that Spider-Man movie, and that will be the biggest push, and really it's the only push that the project needs. I mean, obviously we want to see more, but so many people are going to see whatever's in front of Spider-Man is going to get a lot of eyes on it, and if Sony doesn't have a Dark Tower trailer in front of that, then I will be very, very concerned.
Yeah. Well, I guess we have to wait and see.
Yes.
And the last news is a little interesting because we all know about the movie version of The Running Man, who really doesn't have much to do with King's book. But it's interesting because there's now an article that talks a little bit about what that movie could have been, and it's an interesting read because if you think it was worse, if you think the movie was bad, it could actually have been worse. They have some where they say that it would have been more British than that a tea lady would come out and all the gladiators would stop and have tea and and then continue with the fight, and it was kind of like a Monty Python thing. So, and that would have been very strange. And I remember there were some scenes where they wanted Arnold's character to have a hockey puck that would explode, and he would have kept it with him when all his friends died, and he would never have used it. And then at the end, when he was trying to go through a door that was locked, he brought it out and threw it at the door, and everybody would have thought he wasn't a big ass who didn't want to save his friends, but he wanted to open the door. And it's all kind of strange description of what the script for The Running Man was and what was rejected. And I think that even though I think that it's a poor movie, when I read what it could have been, it sounds quite good anyway. So I think we got better than what we could have gotten. So, but it's an interesting read, a little behind the scenes, how the work with that movie happened. And so you can check that out if you like those kind of things.
Yeah, it's it's a sobering look at behind the scenes productions of movies again. And sometimes people say, "How did they ever let that get on to the silver screen and into theaters?" And then you read of the alternate versions that they had before they actually ended up with the finished project. And as much as I'm not a fan of the version of that Running Man that we got, it's definitely better than some of those other things. Though the George Cosmatos version about making it an allegory of concentration camp and Nazi-occupation has some right ideas, but I don't like the idea of it ending up in the wilderness. I don't think that's where that story needs to go. It's interesting in the way history has played out, that original ending to The Running Man is I'm surprised that more people don't raise a stink about that in light of what happened back on 9/11.
Yeah.
But because they're always quick to pull out their arguments about the book Rage, which Stephen King ended up pulling from the shelves. But this one, I think, again, was very prescient and forecasted a terrible event that turned out to be something that really happened. So
yeah,
I would really like to see a truer version of this story told. And I think it's more relevant today than it ever was before. So I don't know if that will ever happen. We'll have to see. Maybe it'll end up being a Netflix streaming thing if they ever decide to redo that story.
Yeah, and once King stops publishing new books, maybe they will have to go back to the older ones to have something to film, and this one will get a new shot, and maybe we're done again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and that is the news for this time.
This is great. What's our job? We'd like drive around, pick up stiffs or what?
It's time for reviews from the Night Shift.
Let's move on to the main course of the show. And we got a SpeakPipe audio message from Rice Thompson, and we'll play that for you now.
Hi, gentlemen. My name's Reese, just calling from the UK. Just want to know whether you would be doing a segment on Silver Bullet in the near future. Obviously, it's a great movie. I feel it's underrated, and it'd be good to dig into the past of that particular movie. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, it's awesome that we got some feedback from one of our listeners, constant listeners. So thank you very much for that, Rice. And that was a great suggestion. We've never really talked in depth about Silver Bullet. And on a more somber note, it's timely from another perspective as well. If you are familiar with this story at all, Cycle of the Werewolf, upon which Silver Bullet is based. You also know that the book version was heavily illustrated by a Stephen King artist, Bernie Wrightson. And it's come to our attention, and I first heard about this actually through the Brian Keene podcast, the horror show podcast, that he had mentioned that Bernie Wrightson was facing some health issues, and in fact, sadly, in January, had to announce his retirement due to these issues. Apparently, he's been going through a lot of chemo over the course of last year, and last November, he had to go, apparently this is not the first time, but a subsequent brain surgery operation to relieve bleeding. And unfortunately, the surgeries, those surgeries were invasive enough that they've damaged his ability to continue working to the point where he's limited function on his left side. And of course, this also restricts his ability to use his left hand, which means that he has effectively retired and that he will not be able to produce any new art and he will no longer be attending conventions. So that's a definite bummer. And we wish him and his wife Liz the best, and hopefully he'll be able to get back to a point where he'll be able to keep himself busy. He can still sign his name apparently, and he has an associated Kickstarter project, which we'll post all of this information in the show notes for you. I'm not sure if the campaign is still open. You'll have to check the site. He's done a Kickstarter, a successful Kickstarter, to release artwork, lithographs from the Cycle of the Werewolf, which look beautiful. He's also done a calendar, a t-shirt, and there's also some deluxe stuff that looks really cool. One deluxe woodbook edition, which has a silver bullet in the velvet case. It's pretty cool. So we're sorry to hear about the problems that Bernie's facing right now, and we wish him and his wife the best. And I think, Hans, maybe you're a little more familiar with the Cycle of the Werewolf as a project, but my recollection is that there was something King did almost as a collaboration to give Bernie some exposure for his artwork.
Yeah, I think from the beginning it was, Bernie actually contacted King, and he was going to do a calendar from the beginning with those 12 illustrations. And I think that he actually asked King to write just a very short story to go with it, and a little bit on each month. And I think King came back and said, "Whoops, I wrote too much. We have to make a book of it instead." So I think that's the reason why the book came about, and why it's built like it's built. It tells the story in month, and you have the full moon each month, and the werewolf shows itself. So I think that's the reason, or that's why it happened. And as you say, the Kickstarter project, I think the goal was to get $12,000, and it's now up to $78,965. So it's definitely reached its goal. So, and it looks cool. It looks great, all the stuff here. My problem with stuff like these portfolios and stuff like that is I have a hard time displaying them. So they often just, if I get something like that, they often end up in a drawer somewhere. I would like to have them framed and put on the wall, but I don't have that much free wall. So it's a shame, because they are really beautiful work of art.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. So that's the story about that. And the movie we're talking about is an adaptation of Cycle of the Werewolf, and it's called Silver Bullet. There's actually a book called Silver Bullet as well, which is hard to find, but it's a combination of the book Cycle of the Werewolf and the script for Silver Bullet. So that one is out there if you want to look for it. I have my copy of it, and I know it was really hard to find, but I'm sure it's out there if you want to find it.
Cool.
Yeah, and the movie, well, it's an old movie.
Yeah, let's start with the poster. It's actually a really good poster. It's got the full moon just sort of peeking over the top of the woods, and underneath it's bathing opening in the woods, and there's illuminating the fog. So it's a pretty atmospheric picture. I actually think it's quite well done. And then the promo on the poster reads, "It started in Maine, in a small town, and every month after that, whenever the moon was full, it came back." So,
yeah,
it's a movie steeped in the horror tradition, and as an 80s movie, it's an interesting time capsule back to a time, and for a lot of actors in this movie, a stage in their career where they weren't really as well known, with the exception of maybe Gary Busey. So yeah, it's it's got that Carlo Rambaldi did all the creature effects, which actually still are pretty cool. I mean, you know that they're puppets in that, but this is a guy that did E.T. and things like that, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So this is a really interesting time capsule of a movie. What did you think, Hans?
Yeah, well, I think that the story itself and the movie itself isn't actually that bad. I think it's made in the 80s, mid 80s, so it's about what is it, 30 years or something like that. So of course the special effects are going to look old, and I think that as long as you see the werewolf as a werewolf and just maybe not straight ahead, it works. The scene where he transformed from human to werewolf, that's not so good. Looks very plastic and stuff like that. But I guess you're gonna have to accept that stuff is like that when you would watch a movie that's this old. But I think the story holds up, and the acting it's okay. It's
all over the place.
Yeah, it's all over the place, but I mean, it's not worse than most horror movies made back in these days.
Yeah.
So I think overall, it's a good movie, but it's definitely not one that had survived time very much. But I mean, if I remember when this was released and I was 15 years old and I saw that, and I thought it was creepy, and I remember liking it then. So
yeah.
And it's hard to judge a movie 30 years later, but two things that struck me is, one is the music is totally wrong. I mean,
in parts.
Yeah, but when the movie starts and the intro is and the music, it really doesn't sound like a horror movie. It sounds like romantic comedy or something.
Well, that's like
that.
a children's lullaby, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that I was kind of, what is this?
That's the standard for horror movies, though. I mean, we got that in Pet Sematary, and a lot of the Freddy Krueger movies do that same kind of children's lullaby stuff too.
Yeah, and then the fog when they're in the woods looking for the werewolf, and I mean, the fog goes to their midsections, and so there's not much fog, but still the werewolf can move around in it without being seen, and that scene is strange and I don't know.
I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. I mean,
yeah, it's more funny than scary.
There's some good stuff in there. I think the highlight is the bartender who has the bat, the peacemaker, and he's pulled underneath, and you can see him. He's trying to hit this thing, and then all of a sudden, the next time it comes up, it's being held by the werewolf's hand. Yeah. I love that moment.
It must be the only time a werewolf has used a bat to kill this.
So just a little bit of clarity here. I'm sorry, we jumped around a bit. The overall plot of this movie is, as we read from the movie posters, there's a killer on the loose, and this movie stars Marty, a very young Corey Haim, who was part of the Brat Pack, I guess. There was Corey Feldman, and I can't remember the other actor's name, but he's cast as this young boy who's paralyzed, and he has this crazy Uncle Red, played by batshit crazy Gary Busey, when he still had brown hair before it went all white. So he's chewing up the scenery here, but he's building these motorized gas-powered wheelchairs for Marty, and the wheelchairs are always called the Silver Bullet. So there's this nice double meaning with the wheelchair on that. And it's through Marty and his sister, played by actually the Canadian connection for me, Megan Fellows, who is famous in Canada for her role as Anne of Green Gable. It's one of those weird country stories that we don't really get that excited about, but it's one of those things that the rest of the world, when they think of any sort of Canadian movies, they always think of Anne of Green Gables or Story, and she played in that. So they sort of team up, and it's like, what does Gary Busey say at one point? He says, "I'm too old for Hardy Boys meets werewolf weirdos," or something like that. That's pretty well a good encapsulation of this movie, because it's all over the map in terms of tone and style. It is a hoot to see old physical practical effects for a lot of the horror makeup scenes and that. I quite enjoyed that. And this movie really wears its roots on its sleeve. There's nothing clever about this movie. As soon as you see every character in this movie, you know exactly who and what they are. I think probably the most obvious thing is, did you have any doubts about who was the werewolf once you saw all the characters?
No.
Like the actor that plays Reverend Lowe, and I don't know if this is a Rob Lowe connection or not, but Everett McGill, he's just got that dark, hairy look about him that, as soon as you see the guy, oh, he's the werewolf. Yeah. Who else could it be? Like, it's just so obvious. But there's some. It's an interesting time capsule. I guess for me, as a time capsule, maybe I don't know how you feel about that. Maybe because I'm a bit older than you, but it's like the gap between the 70s and 80s for me. Like, I can look at Salem's Lot, the TV miniseries, and recognize the faults with that. But because when I saw it at the right age, I'll always love that series, but this came just a little too late for me, because then I had start to get I was a bit older, and I just thought, boy, this is really kind of cheesy. It's all over the place. So it doesn't work nearly as well for me as, say, like Salem's Lot does. There's moments in it that I really enjoy. Gary Busey is just a hoot to watch. He's chewing up the scenery and drinking from bottles of wild turkey and whatnot. And then he builds him a souped up silver bullet that's basically, for all in purposes, a motorcycle. That's the smoke coming out of that thing. It's like a train.
Yeah, I think, but he goes to the gas station and gas it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and then the gas station says, "Do you want me to check the tires? You want to check the oil? You want me to check the bullshit level of the driver?" It's like, what? It's crazy. It's a fun movie to watch. You can't really take it seriously. I think if the producers and the director had a crystal ball and could have sort of projected who out of this cast was going to go on to have a great career, like Terry O'Quinn, if you've watched Lost or anything like that, where he's totally bald. I didn't even recognize him in this first scene. I didn't realize it was him until because you only saw him in profile, right? When he was on the phone. Yeah. But when he turned to face the camera, then, oh my God, there he is. He's there's a couple of scenes with him and the guys in the bar. Then it becomes like a real serious drama, right? Like and it's like you're going, whoa. And then Terry O'Quinn is just not used enough in this movie. But some of the scenes in the bar were actually pretty good. And I love the scene, the peacemaker, the baseball bat. I mean, that's cliche thing now. The scene that we were talking about at the beginning where they all go into the forest, why they all go to the forest in the first place. So it's never really established, but you can just tell it's a set with the fog at knee height. Yeah, it's just really, it's just so, I don't want to say it's cheesy, but I just really thought it was a romanticized version of horror movies. So like they were really trying to copy the Universal monster movies, like the Werewolf movies from the Lon Chaney and stuff like that. So it was an interesting mix. And, like when he shoots that rocket into the priest's eye, that was like, when he's the werewolf, I'm sorry, when the priest is the werewolf. And then the next day he's, wearing the patch or the bandage, then he starts wearing the patch, and it was just like, oh man, it was just it was a fun, like this would be a great movie to watch with a group of people. I think you could have a lot of fun with it.
And I remember it fondly not because it was that great, but this was released in 85, and around that time I was like 15, 16 years.
Yeah, so you would have been a perfect age for this.
Yeah, and the VHS was just being introduced, and I mean, back then you didn't know far in advance that stuff was coming, and stuff like this was never going to the movies here in Sweden. We always got them straight for video.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think not a lot of Stephen King movies were actually released on movies here. Most of them came straight to video, and you didn't know that far in advance that a movie was coming out or that it was actually being made, because you didn't have the internet and you have Fangoria, and that was released like a month and a half after its original release here in Sweden, so everything was way behind. So you could actually go into the video store and find a new Stephen King movie that you didn't know was even in the making. So that was extremely fun. And I remember when Golden Years was released here on video.
Oh yeah.
A colleague of mine at work came one day and said, "Oh, I saw a new Stephen King movie." And I said, "No, there's no one coming out." And he started to tell me about the plot, and I didn't recognize it because it wasn't made from a book. So, and I think I even left earlier that day from work and ran to the video store, and sure enough, there it was. So I think that even though it's fun today to know stuff in advance, I kind of miss that feeling of just walking in and finding a new movie, or even with books where you didn't know that far in advance that books were coming. They were just being, when they were translated into Swedish, like a year after they had been translated into English, or released in English and stuff like that. So, and that was fun to be surprised as well. You are never surprised now when the book is coming out, because you know at least half a year in advance that it's coming.
Yep. And
I remember it was movies like this one and Graveyard Shift, Firestarter, Children of the Corn, all of those movies came at that time, and it was a fun time and a great time to be a Stephen King fan and finding these movies, and I was always excited about seeing them. So that's why I like them they give me fond memories for that reason. So it's definitely not the best movie, but it's a nostalgic trip back to those days. So
yeah, that where the movie really, there's like this divide in the acting. Like some of the main cast has to interact with, I don't know if maybe these are all professional actors, or they seem more like locals that were just cast to fill out because this is a large cast. So there's a lot of scenes where you have a lead actor with a bunch of extras, but they have these extras have almost as much dialogue as what we think of now, because a lot of these people went on to bigger careers. Like even the actor that played Andy Ferriton, which is the rabble-rouser, Bill Smitrovich, you've seen this guy in tons of other stuff, character actor guy. And these guys are acting at this level. And then you've got these other people that are filling out the cast, that are going on the posse hunts and all, or they're filling out the bar scenes and like that. And the acting of those people is just so amateurish. Like there's this divide in so many of the scenes where you're kind of into it. I mean, even the actor that plays Brady's father, bald guy that comes in and gives a big speech about justice and whatnot. I mean, he's not a great actor, but the dialogue and the passion that he put into that sells that scene. And then you're watching Terry O'Quinn and Bill Smitrovich watching this guy, and you're going to myself, man, one of these two actors should have had that guy's dialogue, because they're such better actors. Like if Terry O'Quinn had played Brady's father, I think that would have been a way better use of that actor. Yeah. But yeah, there's this really, at times it feels like some of the scenes, half the screen is filled up with professional actors, and the other half feels like it's a dollar baby movie or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
so that really takes you out of some of the scenes, which are too bad, but they're a lot of fun as well. Like that fog scene in the woods when the people are getting mowed down, and the one
especially the guy that the werewolf came up with his claws and grabs him in the face and take him down, and then he's rising, like he's stiff like a board and coming up with half his face gone,
and the one guy steps in the bear trap. and somebody yells and the guy lets the trap go again, and the guy's still
it's kind of a comic almost.
I mean, and in the end, that's what saves this movie, is it doesn't take itself seriously. It's winking at you as long as it's telling the story. And some of the scenes with Gary Busey too, like that guy is just like so over the top. It's just unbelievable. So that's the saving grace, I think, of this movie, is that it doesn't take itself seriously, and it laughs at itself. There's some really awkward staging. Like some of the scenes where Megan Fellows, who's playing Marty's sister, has to fall over, are just so poorly staged.
Yeah.
It's like, hit this mark, fall into this puddle, like at the beginning of the movie when she falls into the water and whatnot. That just seems so poorly done. But then when she's in the garage and she gets scared by the mouse and falls into the pile of beer cans, it's a totally different and much better done scene. So I don't know if this director was gaining confidence or learning as he went along, but it definitely felt like that. The movie has a rough start, but it generally improves as it goes along. And I think one of my other favorite sequences we didn't mention is the dream sequence in the church, where the priest is seeing everybody turning into werewolves, which added a layer of depth to that character, who up to that point was a pretty cartoon character. So I appreciated that scene quite a bit, and it was great to see all that makeup work as well. And I'm sure the actors had a ball doing that scene as well.
Yeah, I think my favorite scene is Gary Busey is playing cards with the kid.
Yeah. And he's drinking a bottle of Wild Turkey and
singing, and it's so crazy. But it's a fun movie, and I think it's worth watching.
Yes,
if
for
you
sure.
Don't take it too seriously, and maybe not something to watch on the first date, but it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, I just wish there was a better quality copy of because I don't think it's out on Blu-ray. It's out on DVD, and it's like a lot of the dark scenes are very washed out, so it makes it hard to see. I understand that some of that's intentional because they're trying to hide special effects and that, but I think it would be a little creepier. I mean, some of the shots with the moon are gorgeous. Actually, I really appreciate those full moon shots and that. So there's some pretty cool stuff in there.
Yep. Okay, so hopefully you will watch this and let us know if you agree or not agree with what we have said about it. This is what we think about it.
Yes.
Might not be the same as you.
And I hope you liked our review. And we, again, thank you very much for that. And a lesson for all our other constant listeners. If you want us to review something that we haven't talked about, let us know. And this was good because we were able to leverage off this request to do an update on Bernie Wrightson's status for many who probably aren't aware of it. Plus, it was fun to revisit something that I not normally gravitate towards on my own. So, yeah, this was a lot of fun. And if there's any other obscure King things out there that you want us to review, let us know.
A little corn.
Well, we've already got possibilities with that. So we'll have to see. We'll have to work that into the schedule.
Yeah.
So that concludes this podcast, I guess, Hans, unless you have anything else you wanted to bring up.
No, that's it.
How's your book coming along?
Yeah, it's coming along. It's taking its time. Stuff like that is always taking time. I'm always surprised that stuff takes longer than you think.
Yeah.
But everything is collected in it. Everything is ready, and publisher is working on it. So hopefully I will have more news pretty soon for you.
Awesome. So there you go, folks. A in-depth look at Silver Bullet. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that. And given the current state of things, again, we're recording this on March 19th. There's a lot of potential Stephen King news that could break over the next week or two. So we're going to keep our options open as to what we're going to make our next podcast all about. So stick around for that. And is there anything else you wanted to add, Han?
No, just that it's exciting times to be a Stephen King fan. A lot of stuff happening and a lot of stuff coming up. And I'm pretty sure we soon will be seeing trailers for both it and the Dark Tower. So, and we will be there to guide you through them.
We will, and you heard it from the man himself. So you can put that down, take that to the bank. All right. So as usual, stay safe,
but
stay scared.
Bye bye.